Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's meeting of the SABR Elysian Fields chapter, coming to you straight from Northern New Jersey. Before I introduce our guest tonight, I just want to remind everybody about our chapter anniversary luncheon that's coming up on August 16th. We're celebrating our 20th anniversary, and we're going to get together for a really cool afternoon, really nice Italian luncheon at Annabella's in East Rutherford. Our guest speaker is going to be Ed Randall. I've got some other fun surprises lined up too. It is a prepay event with reservations required. It's a buffet, so walk-ins are not going to be feasible. If you do want to join, and of course everybody's welcome, bring a friend who's not a SABR member. That's all cool. I've gotten a few questions about that. If you need more information, please reach out to me by email, or you can send a message to any of our social media channels, SABR Elysian on Blue Sky, X, and Instagram. So without further ado, tonight's guest has been a member of SABR for more than 40 years. He's a national baseball writer, contributing to numerous publications, including Sports Collector's Digest and Memories and Dreams. He's the last remaining original editor of the Here's the Pitch newsletter, producing the weekend editions and writing at least one column per issue. He covers spring training, the All-Star Game, the Hall of Fame inductions, the World Series, and the winter meetings, and is the author of a whopping 42 baseball books. An Atlanta Braves fan residing in Elysian Fields territory, Dan Schlossberg is with us tonight to discuss the latest edition of his biggest book, The New Baseball Bible. Dan, thanks for taking a break from all that writing to be with us.
Thanks, Donna. I needed the break.
Do you want to get right into it with the screen share?
Yeah, I think we should, because people are going to have questions. We can talk about anything that has to do with baseball.
Okay.
Like the book, which has everything to do with baseball.
That's the beauty of this book. And as you know, I got the sneak preview of the slideshow, so you guys will see exactly what Dan is talking about in just a second. Okay, there we go. Does everybody see that okay?
Yeah, okay. I'll begin by saying, notice the cover. This cover is different than any of the previous editions. There have actually been more than a dozen different derivations of the book that was called the Baseball Catalog in 1980 when it was first published. It's had 3 different publishers, which is why it says 3rd edition. This is actually the 3rd edition done by Skyhorse, my current publisher, which is Sports Publishing. But let me tell you about the cover, because the picture of Tom Seaver I took at the All-Star Game in Kansas City in 1973. The picture on the far right of Hank Aaron and Eddie Matthews I took at West Palm Beach Municipal Stadium in 1974, just before Hank Aaron broke Babe Ruth's record. Matthews was a manager then. David Ortiz, Big Papi, has all kinds of records for DH. There's a whole section on rules and designated hitters. Shohei Ohtani had to be on the cover because all the influence of Japanese players, plus a pitcher, outfielder, DH, I mean, he's fabulous. The guy on the far right, I'm sure all of you will recognize, is Josh Gibson. This is a section on the Negro Leagues. Derek Jeter is there too. And on the far left, pre-war, is Bob Feller. So that's how the pictures on the cover were assembled. I got into a very good discussion with my editor, Jason Katzman, on who we were going to pick. And we went back and forth and settled on these guys. So it was a fun project, one of the best projects about the whole book. Okay, let's go on. Walter Johnson, the reason he's there is we start with the beginnings of baseball. Walter Johnson was probably the best of the early pitchers, 110 lifetime shutouts. That's unbelievable. Just think how few complete games pitchers pitch these days. This guy had 110 shutouts. He won over 400 games. The only pitcher to win more was Cy Young, who started in the 19th century. And oddly enough, when the voting for the first Hall of Fame class came to be, he got the fewest votes of any of the 5 candidates, only 83.6%. Hard to believe he didn't get 90% or more. The other 4 all did. Okay, let's move on. This is this section, this is chapter 2. We talk about rules in baseball. And obviously, the best DH these days is Shohei Ohtani, and his dog Decoy really appreciates him. This is the first time that the new Baseball Bible has color photography throughout. There are many color pictures in this edition. And they've also increased and improved the paper stock of this edition. The book weighs a ton. It's really heavy, but it's a bargain, $30, not bad. Okay, let's go on. And there we have some artwork of David Big Papi Ortiz. I mentioned he has just about all the records for DHs. Ohtani could break quite a few of them, though. 50 home runs last year, for example, and 50 stolen bases. The only guy to do a 50-50 season. Okay, let's go on. I took this picture of Hank Aaron during spring training. What I wanted to show here was the 2 umpires. There's an umpire behind home plate. There's an umpire down the third baseline, and you can see the baseball. It's a blur. The catcher is about to get it unless Aaron hits it first. And Aaron obviously sees it. The catcher sees it. This is a spring training game late in Aaron's career in West Palm Beach Municipal Stadium. And there is a section on umpires and rules in the book. Let's go on, Donna. Okay, welcome home, Brooklyn Dodgers. They only won 1 world championship. That was in 1955, as I'm sure all of you know. And here we have 5 of the reasons. Manager Walter Ralston, Captain Pee Wee Reese, Duke Snyder, Gil Hodges, and Roy Campanella. And now all 5 of them are in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Hodges was the last one to make it. Okay, go on. This is Dodger Stadium's retired numbers right in the plaza as you go into the ballpark. You see these enormous numerals of great Dodgers of the past. 32 was Sandy Koufax, 39 was Roy Campanella. And of course, there are many others there too. I couldn't get them all in the photograph. I took this picture to show how close the Polo Grounds was to Yankee Stadium, right across the river, 1/4 of a mile as the crow flies. Now, one of the reasons that the Yankees kicked out the Giants, who were tenants at the Polo Grounds, was they were doing so much better attendance-wise once Babe Ruth landed there in 1920. So the Giants became, the Giants kicked out the Yankees because of Babe Ruth. And so the house that Ruth built was because the Yankees used the revenue that they made from Babe Ruth's performance at the Polo Grounds to build the new ballpark in the Bronx, 1/4 of a mile away. Okay, now here, 1944, the only tri-cornered game in the history of baseball. There were 3 teams playing, the Dodgers, Giants, and Yankees, the 3 teams that were in New York. This was a wartime fundraiser for war bonds. Giants, Dodgers, and Yankees. 1 team batted, 1 team was in the field, and 1 team sat out. They played 6 innings. This game was played at the Polo Grounds on June 26, 1944. And Willard Mullen, a great cartoonist, drew that cartoon. Okay, Donna. Women in baseball, there are many of them. Ladies' Day was an old idea. And here's the beautiful organist of the Chicago White Sox, Nancy Faust. Let's move on. Here's Ted Williams. Now, these 2 paintings were painted by James Fiorentino, probably the best baseball artist I've ever seen. He's a Jersey boy. He lives in Flemington, New Jersey, does beautiful artwork. He's worked for all the baseball card companies. There you have Ted Williams going to war. And here you have Ted and Joe, who, if they had ever been traded for each other, probably both would have broken Babe Ruth's record. They're playing in the wrong home ballparks. Okay, go ahead. Dusty Baker, we have a section on managers too. Dusty Baker took a record 5 different teams into the playoffs. He only won the World Series with the Astros, but he did win a World Series ring as a player and a manager. Dusty Baker did a great job. The Reds, Nationals, Giants, Cubs, and especially the Astros. Here we have Shohei again. This time he's getting the MVP award in the World Baseball Classic from the Commissioner of Baseball, Rob Manfred. Now, you might recall that Ohtani was on the mound as a pitcher and struck out his teammate, Mike Trout, and that's why Japan won the World Baseball Classic. I took this picture of Freddie. I really like this picture. Talk about a close-up. Freddie was great. Freddie is a very thoughtful guy, Freddie Freeman. National League All-Star first baseman. He's been an All-Star for quite a few years in a row. And he really makes that Dodger team go. This was taken at the Baseball Hall of Fame because there is a chapter on concessionaires and peanut vendors and all that stuff. It's all in the New Baseball Bible. Roger Owens, the great peanut vendor, once set the record for the longest opening day throw. He threw a bag of peanuts 3 rows. Okay. Here we have Vince Scully before and after, or almost after. This is when he started on WOR TV, Channel 9 in New York. And see that LSMFT? Remember what that says. And there's Vince Scully down below. Toward the end of his great career, he was a Dodger broadcaster for 67 years. That's kind of amazing to me. Did a great job. Okay, next. Now here I took this picture at Dodger Stadium. This shows their roots. I have a section on team nicknames. The Dodgers got their nickname because when they were in Brooklyn, New Yorkers called Brooklynites trolley Dodgers. There were so many crisscrossing trolley lines in Brooklyn that New Yorkers made fun of people who lived in the other borough and called them trolley Dodgers. The Dodgers kept the name and dropped the trolley. They still are called Dodgers. Okay, next. Here we have opening day at Yankee Stadium. I have a chapter on traditions. And I took this picture of opening day at Yankee Stadium with the big flag, the teams lining up down the baselines. It's a great time to be at a ballpark. Okay. The Baseball Hall of Fame, there's a chapter on the Baseball Hall of Fame. Ichiro is going in this year. Not only the first position player from Japan to make the US majors, but the first Japanese player of any position to make the Baseball Hall of Fame. They originally expected a record crowd, but probably not going to happen this year. There are various different reasons about it. We can discuss that later. But Ichiro heads the class of 2025, which has 5 members, 2 of them deceased, unfortunately. Dick Allen and Dave Parker did not live to see their inductions. Here we have Jeff Idelson, former longtime president of the Baseball Hall of Fame and former Yankees PR director, a longtime friend of mine. The reason I took his picture is because he wrote a special piece for the book on an insider's perspective on what induction weekend is really like. Very different from his perspective than it is from the typical fans. Okay, go ahead. There's a section on spring training, my favorite time of the baseball year, as you can probably tell from the hat I'm wearing and the picture behind me. This is the Minnesota Twins ballpark, a Victorian-looking ballpark that's pretty new, actually. This is Hammond Field in Fort Myers, Florida, also the home of JetBlue Park where the Red Sox train. This is a Victorian-looking baseball field. I love it. Note those 2 towers. Here we have all the logos, and it tells you where the teams train. Now, this changes pretty frequently. In fact, right now we have 15 teams in Florida, 15 in Arizona, and we should have an even number in both locations so that we can have a workable schedule. The way it works now, you have to have a lot of A squad games, B squad games, a lot of games, split squads, which are crummy because the fans don't get to see the best players that way. Okay, next. And here you have the map. It shows exactly where teams are. In Arizona, they're very close together. Not so in Florida, which is a much bigger state. It's a long drive from Dunedin down to Jupiter. And those teams don't get together too often. Once in a while they do, but mostly the teams that are grouped together play together. Occasionally there are changes. For example, this year, the Braves opened their season in San Diego. So on their way out to San Diego, they stopped at the Cactus League and played 2 games with the Cubs in the Cactus League. Those are 2 of their best games of the season, by the way. We can go on. I put this in because I love trains, and there's a lot about train travel in this book. Until after World War II, when teams started to fly more by airplane, they took the train. And the westernmost post of baseball was St. Louis until the Dodgers and Giants moved to California. So teams traveled a lot by train. There was no jet lag until we got into the jet age. Okay, go on. There's a section on minor league baseball. Here's Lou Brock wearing a St. Cloud hat. Lou Brock, Northern League Rookie of the Year, Northern League MVP. And then Chicago Cubs center fielder. He didn't do much for the Cubs except for one thing. In 1962, he became the first player to hit a ball into the center field bleachers of the Polo Grounds. He was with the Cubs when that happened. The next team in there was the Milwaukee Braves. Hank Aaron and Joe Adcock did it on consecutive nights, the same thing. The only three guys who ever did that. Center field bleachers of the Polo Grounds. And there's Joe DiMaggio, San Francisco Seals. Now note that he had a 61-game hitting streak in the minors before he had a 56-game streak in the majors. I thought that was pretty cool. Okay, Donna. Detroit Tigers went to Japan. A lot of teams went to Japan and played Japanese all-star teams. In fact, Hank Aaron and Sadaharu Oh, but we're going to get into that story in a minute. Go ahead. There's a section on women in baseball in this book, and there are a lot of women in baseball as players, umpires, broadcasters, even groundskeepers, broadcasters I mentioned. If you guys watch the game tonight on Major League Baseball Network, there's a game at 10 o'clock, Athletics versus Braves. Last night they played the Athletics feed. They have a female broadcaster who's pretty good. So if you want to hear her, she'll probably be on again tonight. Okay, go ahead. Check out this attendance, 93,000 watch Yankees defeat Dodgers. This game was played at the old LA Coliseum, where they could have fit even more fans. But this year, with that game coming up at the Bristol Speedway, which holds 146,000 people, there's definitely going to be a new record for that. They expect well over 100,000, maybe even 115,000 to attend that August 2nd game between the Reds and the Braves. It's going to count, that game. Trading cards. Yes, of course, there's a section of baseball cards in the book. And there are many cards in the book, including some painted by James Fiorentino. He did a fabulous job. In fact, his book that came out late last year called The Art of Watercolors, I believe, or no, The Art of Baseball. It's all his watercolors. That is rated the #1 baseball book of 2025. Since Sports Collectors Digest, that hasn't been published yet, but it's coming because I wrote it. Okay, next. Now here we have the prices of concessions as shown at the Hall of Fame's concessions exhibit. Check out those prices. $2.50 for a hot dog, $1 for coffee, $1 for peanuts, $1.10 for Pepsi. You know these are old prices, but it's in the Hall of Fame. Cracker Jacks, Cracker Jill also is on the wall there. And we do have a section on concessions. Okay, next. Mariano Rivera. Now, I love this picture for several reasons. Number one, he's the only guy to get into the Hall of Fame unanimously. I know that Ichiro and Derek Jeter missed by 1 vote. Some other players came close. Tom Seaver missed by about 3 votes. Rivera made it by unanimous vote. But I also love this beautiful cartoon that was done by famous baseball cartoonist Ronnie Joyner. He's passed away, but he did a whole book on his cartoons. I really recommend it. Ronnie Joyner's cartoons. There were several other Ronnie Joyner cartoons in the New Baseball Bible as well. Okay, Donna. I love that sign in the stands. After the Cubs won in 2016, after a 108-year drought, this fan held up a sign, "I don't have 100 more years." Very well done. The Cubs are doing very well this year, but whether they can get past that 12-team playoff network and get into the World Series and win it again, it's not that easy. Plus, you have to get by the Dodgers. The Dodgers and Yankees, if they win again, they'll be the first repeat winners of the World Series since 2001, when the Yankees won their 3rd in a row. It's a long drought. Okay, here's Rogers Hornsby, probably the best right-handed hitter in baseball history. There's a lot about him in this book. There's an index in the book. You can look it up. He was traded quite often. He was even traded when he was a manager. But he was traded quite often, once for Frankie Frisch in a celebrated trade of future Hall of Famers. Frankie Frisch was a hero in New York. Rogers Hornsby was a hero in St. Louis. But ownership on both sides wanted to get rid of both guys, so they made the trade. Okay, next. Bill Maher, new rules. We've had a lot of new rules in baseball recently. None of them suggest about Bill Maher, but I know he's a big Mets fan. Okay, let's go. That's a different train. Another baseball team is on it, but they're still going to a baseball game from one city to the next. Okay, next. That's the cover of the new Baseball Bible, third edition. It's actually about the 12th edition. Everything has changed from the beginning. If you pick up the original baseball catalog, I know some of you have it from 1980, and compare it to this book, it'll be a vast difference. Paper stock is different, color photography is different. Many of the pictures in this book are from my personal collection, especially Hank Aaron pictures, but there are many others as well. And this one has a new forward by Chip Carey, who's a Cardinals broadcaster, has a forward by John Thorne. It has a lot of information in it that I think you guys will love. And there's a lot about SABR in the book. As Donna mentioned, I've been a SABR member since 1981. I've been to many of the conventions. I couldn't go this year because it was too much Texas. The winter meetings were there. The All-Star game was there. I figured, three is not a charm in this case. Plus, I have to go to the All-Star game and the Hall of Fame induction. Too much. Got to have some time to write. So I didn't go this year. I'm sorry. I'll try to get there next year.
I'll talk a little bit about the convention when we get further along in there. Before we go to Q&A, and Dan, I'll have you repeat this again later. Let everybody know where we can get the book.
You can easily get it from Amazon.com, or since you guys are off from New Jersey, I'm going to be signing at the Barnes & Noble in Clark. I believe it's going to be the day after the SABR luncheon, which is Sunday the 17th, I believe that Sunday is.
Yep.
Okay, I'm trying to work out the time. It's going to be either afternoon or early evening. Or if you're going to the Hall of Fame inductions, I'll be signing there too.
Are you why are these Oh, okay, we're good. Sorry. I thought people were in the waiting room. It's just I was like, oh no, I let people out, but I didn't. We're all good. Okay. So when we get to before we get to questions, I'm sorry, I just received a very nice Alec. Thank you very, very much. We'll talk offline. I just got a private message from Alec. Okay, so if you have a question, we can do this real informal, just raise your hand or throw up your hand and we'll go one at a time. If you're shy and don't want to ask yourself on screen, throw it in the chat and I'll ask on your behalf. Jeff, go for it. Oh, you got to unmute yourself.
There we go.
Reading
I thought you
lips
unmuted all of us there, Donna, but
no, I didn't. I'm sorry. Reading lips is not among my talents. Sorry.
not a problem. And I mean, this book is just outstanding. It's over 450 pages of everything you want to know about baseball. But the question I have is, how do you decide what not to put in here? This book could go on for 1,000 pages.
You're right. Absolutely. There was a lot of stuff that was left on the cutting room floor, just like editing a movie. Steven Spielberg could answer that better than I, but you have to do edits.
Did you make the decisions, or did your editor, or a combination? How do you do it?
Totally me. So if you like it, credit me. And if you don't like it, blame the editor.
There you go. It's great stuff. I love it.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, I gotta imagine with all of that content. I mean, Jeff brings up a great point. I know that I'm working now on a photo essay, as I was telling Dan before the meeting. I'm working on a photo essay for the SABR book on the Oakland Coliseum, and I went through the same thing, with many other projects, but very specifically with the SABR book on it was Turnstile, the Baseball and the Arts book that I did a photo essay on Hinchley Stadium. And self-editing, that is really hard, like deciding what goes in and what goes out. And that was just, what I'm doing now is just my photos from across 6 days. I mean, you're covering the entire history of the game. So from a content standpoint of what to include and what not to include, that in and of itself is difficult. But then how do you also decide, as a photographer, this question is a logical one, what gets illustrated and what doesn't? What do you go to James and say, hey, do you have something? Or go to the archives or whatever the case may be? How do you decide where the illustrations come in and where they don't?
The more unusual, the better, Donna. So anything that I thought wasn't going to be published anywhere else is in my book. And there are a lot of pictures by people who don't publish photographs anywhere else. The late David Fenster, who's was a personal friend of mine, has a lot of pictures in this book. All the James Fiorentino art that I picked out. I was also able to use Getty pictures from Getty, which is normally quite expensive, but sports publishing has a contract with Getty. So they let me use a dozen or so Getty pictures, AP pictures, things that I thought were unusual, like that picture of Decoy, And I mentioned Shohei Ohtani, and I also mentioned Mo Berg. Or I didn't mention Mo Berg yet, but I mentioned Sadaharu Oh and Hank Aaron. They actually had an exhibition match that was like the old home run derby, and they did it in 1974 after the end of the baseball season because Aaron retired. He went to Japan. Aaron won that derby 10-9.
I didn't want to interrupt you. Dan Dixie was holding up. He's got the book.
Oh, I don't see it. Let's see it.
Yeah, he put it back down.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. And by the way, Donna, I should have mentioned, I'm going to come to your luncheon. So anybody who wants an autographed copy of the book, drop me an email and I'll bring you a book and I'll sign it and sell it to you right there.
That works. That's cool. For sure.
I'll give you my email right now. My email is ballauthor@gmail.com. All one word, ball, like baseball, author, because I write baseball books, ballauthor@gmail.com.
42 of them. So I know there's going to be more questions from the gallery, but do you as somebody who's already written 42, you got to know what number 43 is going to be.
Oh, I do. I'm working on it right now. Because I edit the weekend editions of Here's the Pitch for the IBWAA, I've already been signed to do Here's the Pitch 2026, which is a book just like the 25 edition, only new essays.
It was very cool.
Once again, is more than can fit in a book. A lot of stuff is already on the cutting room floor. Good stuff.
Yeah. Have you ever, I mean, there's outtake reels for TV shows and movies and whatever. Did you ever think of doing like an outtake reel for a book like this?
That would be great. I would love to do that. I once ran into George Steinbrenner in the elevator at Yankee Stadium. And I asked him about Seinfeld because I was a big Seinfeld fan. I had to ask him. He said he was a big Seinfeld fan too. So I said, George, did you ever actually get into an episode? He said, I did, but I wound up on the cutting room floor.
Oh.
So even George Steinbrenner was on the cutting room floor. But I'll tell you a much better George Steinbrenner story. You're going to love this story. There used to be some media people know this, but not too many other fans know this. There used to be a media parking lot at Yankee Stadium, but there was a lot of abuse, people claiming to be media who were not. So George Steinbrenner one day decided that he was going to solve this issue, and he went down and he traded places with the guy who ran the parking lot. So he was checking out everybody who came into the parking lot. So some guy pulls in, and Steinbrenner says to him, let me see your credentials. And the guy says, I'm a personal friend of George Steinbrenner's. That was the end of media parking at Yankee Stadium.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I remember where the players' lot was. Where was the media lot?
It was in a little fenced-in area right across from the old press gate. The old Yankee Stadium, not the new one.
Next to the player lot.
Not exactly. Well, no, not exactly. It was sort of like diagonally across. It was on what would now be the side of the stadium.
Okay.
I was in there a lot because I would take Ed Lucas, the blind broadcaster. I took him there a lot. I was a seeing eye dog.
Very cool. We're actually covering a sneak preview for everybody. Craig and I are covering what I guess is now called the David Cohn Celebrity Golf Classic, which is the fundraiser for the
Oh,
Ed
good.
Lucas Foundation. We're covering that event, and there'll be a piece on that in the fall issue of our newsletter.
And I'll be there.
Oh, awesome. So we'll see you there. I've got a question from Mike O'Hare Dixie. I'll get to you in a second. Mike said, just received my book a few weeks ago. It's awesome. How did you decide what factoids to place in the gray boxes?
The gray boxes were kind of the editor's decision. I just gave him the information. They primarily did the designing of it. I did some, such as the cover, which I mentioned, and I picked out the pictures, but they really did the design.
Dixie, go for it.
Dan, with such a big sample size of books, I don't know if this question is going to be easier or harder. What is the easiest type of book to write, and what is the hardest type of book to write?
This is the hardest type of book to write because there's so much information. You know, Jeffrey mentioned it could have been 1,000 pages, it could have been 10,000 pages. I could probably do 500 pages on each chapter. So I just wanted to give people who bought the book a chance to sample everything about baseball. In fact, if Woody Allen were naming the book, he would have named it Everything You Wanted to Know About Baseball, but We're Afraid to Ask. And I wanted to make it both a bathroom book and a coffee table book. A book about a one guy, like a biography, is much easier. And I struggled to write the Hank Aaron book because there's so much to say about him last year. But it's still a lot easier than a book like this.
Now, talking about that Hank Aaron book, that was your second Hank Aaron
That
biography,
is correct.
right?
I did two Hank Aaron biographies 50 years apart.
So did that, okay, I'm gonna out myself here. I haven't read either. I'm sorry. How do you revisit a subject like that without being repetitive? I mean, Hank Aaron is somebody that there's so much to say about, but I would imagine that some of the stuff that was in that first book was worth repeating.
Well, there was a lot in the second book that was not in the first because it was impossible. There's
Of course.
a lot about his post-baseball career. For example, did you know that 4 Democratic presidents credited Hank Aaron's campaigning for them with putting them in the White House? Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, Joe Biden, and Barack Obama all said Aaron's campaigning for them put them in the White House.
Interesting.
Did you know that the Aarons and the Carters went on a ski vacation in Europe, and Aaron and Carter kept falling all over themselves because they didn't know how to ski? Can you imagine?
To be a fly on the wall for those conversations,
Oh,
or
yeah.
to watch them falling all over skiing, that would also be interesting and fun and
well, Jimmy Carter didn't swear, but Hank Aaron swore a blue streak.
Dan, what was the hardest book for you to write and why?
That's easy. I once did a book called Pitching. It was an instructional book. I hated it. It was something that came to me as an assignment. I didn't like it. I don't like telling people how to play baseball. So that was a hard book to write, really hard. And I did not enjoy it. But, you know, it's like a pitcher having a bad day, but still making the all-star team.
It was really cool for those who weren't there. When we did the Celebrate Baseball event at the Yogi Berra Museum, we had out a free table, and it was various things, a bunch of books, some stadium giveaways, memorabilia, whatever, and hearing people going there and pulling Dan's books. Oh, I found a Dan Schlossberg book. And I think quite a few people came up to you with them, right? And you found a few yourself also.
I found 3 of them. Baseball starts in 1972, 1973, 1974. 3 paperbacks published by Pyramid. I had almost forgotten that I contributed anything to them.
So what happens when you're out there for as long as you are and do as good a job as you do, and you never know, right? When
your check is in the mail.
You never know, like when literally, right? You never know when stuff is gonna pop up somewhere. It's kind of cool. Karen.
Karen, unmute.
about
There you go.
There she
the
is.
toughest book. What's the best book that you had? That you had the most fun in? That's a really bad statement, but what was the where did you have the most fun writing?
That's a really good question. I think the New Baseball Bible, because there's so many ways it could have gone. So many, just picking out the chapters, picking out the pictures. It was really fun to do it. There's a chapter on superstitions. I mean, presidents at the ballpark, all kinds of stuff. I mean, I didn't know that Harry Truman was ambidextrous and threw out a ball with each hand in 1948.
Oh my gosh.
So he threw out 2 first pitches?
He threw out 2 first pitches. The whole point of this book is for any reader, no matter how much baseball you think you know, to find something on every page that'll make you say, gee, I didn't know that.
Ah. Okay, thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
just wondered.
Good question. Thank you.
Now, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong. Was it at one point in time there was also a supplement? There was a calendar supplement to the book. Is that right?
Yes. How do you know that? Saw my
Because
calendar?
I may have had one at one point.
I probably gave you one for
You did.
for about for 5 or 6 years. I actually put out calendars based on the New Baseball Bible. I didn't do it last year, and I'm not sure yet if I'm going to do it this year. It's very expensive to produce with all that color photography, as you know.
Yes. Yes.
If I got a sponsor, I would do it.
See, that's one of the things that amazes me, that there aren't more people out there willing to, or not more people, more organizations out there, or whatever the right word is, to support good baseball content, right? They're all willing to smack their names all over the outfield walls, but that's kind of where it ends, and that's really sad and
Well,
fake.
it's amazing, Donna. It's amazing how many people have asked me, I want a calendar. I want a new calendar. Are you going to do the calendar this year? I would like to, but not at a major loss. I mean, just mailing it out costs a lot of money.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, yeah, I mean, shipping costs alone are I know a thing or two about that, but yeah, it's very sad. Very, very sad. Well, I hope somebody watches this and knows somebody who would like to sponsor the calendar, because it's really cool. So
ballauthor@gmail.com.
there we go. ballauthor@gmail.com. John, what do you got?
Yes. Hey, Dan, being that this is the third Bible, baseball Bible that you've done, what is different in this one that wasn't in the other 2, and how did you decide? You know, it's really awesome what you did. Just like, what was the difference between the first 2 that you did with the third one now?
That's a very good question, and I'm glad you asked, because the last update was 5 years ago. So much has happened in the last 5 years. In fact, I think more has happened in baseball in the last 5 years than in the entire history of baseball before that. Just all the rules changes. So much has happened. I mean, Ohtani being a 2-way player, the first real 2-way player since Babe Ruth. I could go on and on. And, you know, we could talk about the rules too, and all the changes and whether they're good for baseball. The expansion of the playoffs, so many things. And we're going to have more expansion of teams too. We're going to go to 32 teams probably before the commissioner leaves. He said he's going to leave in 2029. We're going to have expansion before that. We've also got to get past the CBA expiring, because we're going to have another strike too. So I hate to say that. So buy the book now, guys.
Yep. And you've got 2 teams that are somewhat homeless right now.
Oh yeah. In fact, I'm glad you brought that up, Donna, because people said to me last year, have you been to all the ballparks? And before this year, my answer was yes, but that was before the roof fell in on the Tropicana Dome. And also, you know, with the A's being in limbo, the Twilight Zone team, I've not been to Sacramento, or I have been to Steinbrenner Field, but only for a spring training game, not for a regular season game. So you can't count that really. I've been there, but you know, it's different now.
And you also, there's also somewhat of a limbo attached to the Rays from the standpoint of what happens if they play postseason, right? I mean, Major League Baseball is not going to allow that revenue to walk out the door. But by the same token, so you're going to move them even further out of their fan base. I mean, not that they would sell out when they were playing in Tropicana Dome anyway, but you're going to move them further away. They'd be better off staying where they are and selling out than having the games in Miami when they're probably going to get the same crowd anyway.
Yeah, but Miami has a dome, so they'll get those games in. That's going to be a major factor.
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, there is the weather. Yes, that from a weather standpoint, I get it. I feel bad for the fans though.
Yeah, me too. What
fans? I feel
fans?
bad for the fans. Yeah. Well, that's it's what a mess. Anybody else have any questions or comments for it? Dixie, you're back.
I'm back.
Go for it.
Dan, in terms of writing, and Donna mentioned this before, self-editing. What does Dan Schlossberg, the editor, dislike most about Dan Schlossberg, the writer? And what does he say? How could you write this?
Well, I'm a perfectionist and I'm very outspoken. I'll say exactly what I think. And Major League Baseball may not like what I have to say. I hated Bud Selig. I do not think he should be in the Hall of Fame. And he appointed Rob Manfred. And when Rob Manfred came up with that Manfred man base runner in the 10th inning or whatever, I think that was the most disgusting rules change in baseball history. And he should have been fired by the owners for doing it. And if it's such a good change, how come they don't have it in the postseason?
Well, and one could say going along, this is about to turn into a bashing session, and I don't want it to, but being that we already talked about the situation with the Twilight Zone team, that's kind of a making of those two commissioners as well.
Yeah, it is. They actually should never put any teams in Florida. Florida is for spring training. What they should have done is get an even number of teams in Florida and Arizona, as I mentioned earlier. So you can have good scheduling for spring training, which brings me to the World Baseball Classic, which I detest. It's a fabrication just to raise revenue. It should never interfere with spring training. Too many guys get hurt during it. It's awful. And anybody who buys a ticket for a spring training game deserves a refund.
Tell us what you really think. No, I'm joking. I was referring to the Oakland situation, though.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, Oakland, why don't they call themselves Sacramento? They're obviously doing well there. Look at last night's game. They had 4 home runs in the first inning and a third. It's ridiculous.
Sad. Well,
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, John.
Dan, I just wanted to ask you, well, being that you know so much about baseball, really, I wanted to know what was your opinion about the Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson being, after they passed away, being reinstated. What was your opinion about that?
I think the President of the United States had a lot to do with that. He got with Rob Manfred, who's also a registered Republican, by the way, and he put a little pressure on him. However, Pete Rose will have to get past 2 things, the nominating committee and the voting committee. He will never be in the Hall of Fame. He lied for 25 years. He doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. However, Shoeless Joe does deserve it. He batted .375 in the 1919 World Series. He led both teams. He never took any money. He was illiterate. He should be there. Pete Rose, no.
Thanks.
Okay. Before we do a little bit of a look ahead, anybody else have any questions, last chance questions for Dan? Okay, if not, if you think of something after the fact, ballauthor@gmail.com. Dan, remind everybody again how they can get your book.
You can get it from Amazon.com. You can get it if you want an autographed copy in person. Let me know in advance. I'll bring it to the luncheon. Or you can come to Cooperstown. I'll be signing from 11 to 1 the day before inductions in front of Willis Money Books on Main Street.
On Barnes and Noble and Clark.
That's right. Barnes and Noble and Clark on Sunday the 17th. That's tentative right now, but I think it's going to work out.
I will hopefully, you never know, because induction weekend I find to be so unpredictable, but I will probably stop by and say hello. I will be up there. It's going to be a really fun time, although less crowded than we originally thought, which not great from the standpoint of Cooperstown commerce, but maybe not such a bad thing for those of us who are looking to be able to walk and move and breathe. Speaking of Cooperstown, and I thought about this as we were going through the slides, that Cracker Jack exhibit was part of in the room, if I remember correctly, where Sacred Ground was, which is now gone.
Yeah.
So there's that new Yakyu baseball exhibit that's opening induction weekend, or I
Yes.
think they're doing a soft open a little before that, but officially opening induction weekend. I'm hoping to see it. I have no chance at getting in there and being able to enjoy it during induction. So hopefully the day after, or maybe when I go back up in October, I'll get to see it. I don't want to see it from a sardine can standpoint.
Don, I'll give you an Ichiro oddity.
Go for it.
He was a natural right-hander whose father taught him to bat left-handed to take advantage of his speed.
Really?
Yep.
Interesting.
Same
He to me is
same with Billy Wagner, by the way.
Yes.
Ichiro to me is one of the most fascinating ball players ever. Watching him in batting practice and seeing what he is capable of power-wise, and knowing that he chose not to make that a huge part of his game. I wonder if today, I mean, not that people didn't always think home runs were sexy, but they're just, it's over the top now with it's home run or bust, right? You wonder what Ichiro's game would have been like today. And I would like to hope that, knowing what kind of respect he has for the game and what kind of respect he has for what he can contribute to the team, that he would be the same player. But you wonder with the way things are today, if people would have tried to force his bat otherwise.
That's a good point. He was a great leadoff man. We don't have too many leadoff men like that anymore.
No.
Ohtani is one of them, though.
Yes. Well, Ohtani's game, I mean, is so completely different from Ichiro's. And I mean, and not in a bad way. I mean, they're two completely different players. I enjoy watching Ohtani play, but I'm just in awe of still. I mean, I guess the last time I saw him on the field was in 2018 in Texas. And he was shagging fly balls, and though people from a distance, they thought he was just, one of the guys. I mean, he didn't take BP while I was there, but something tells me that if he had, he would have still been hitting him.
By the way, Ichiro had 600 infield hits.
It's amazing. Just in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, in the majors, right?
Right. Yeah.
Our majors.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Absolutely amazing. Okay, we've got more amazing stuff coming up for you. Before I get to the next official Elysian Fields event, I'm going to turn things over to Chris Butts for a second. Chris is on the, for lack of a better term, we'll use the official, on the board of our neighbors to the south, the Goose Goslin chapter, and they have recently joined the East Coast Co-op, which is a group of chapters that runs from Eastern Canada all the way down now as far south as Southern Jersey. And they are bringing their first event to the co-op on July 16th. So Chris, tell us a little bit about that.
Hey folks, nice to see everybody again. I've been, even though I'm part of Goose Goslin, I've been taking part in your calls for a couple years now, and it's nice to see y'all. We lined up author Mitch Nathanson a few years ago. He wrote a really great biography on Dick Allen, and thought it would be really timely for him to have a talk about that with Dick Allen getting inducted to the Hall of Fame this year. So he will be speaking next week on at the 6th on July 16th at this time. So it'd be really great if you could all join. I've seen him give other presentations before. He's really good, and the book was really great, and I think you'll really get a kick out of it.
If anybody needs the registration link for that, it's in the, not the last email that I sent out, but the one before that with all the event recaps. And if you don't still have that, you can always go to the SABR calendar and the SABR event calendar, and links for every meeting, every virtual meeting across the entire organization is in there. And I do encourage people, not on July 16th and not on August 5th, because I'll talk about that event in a second, but take a look. There is so much great programming out there, and anybody can attend any event, whether you're a SABR member or not. So if you see something that you think a friend might enjoy and they're not a SABR member, let them know about it. Let them register. Maybe they'll decide they love SABR and they want to become a member. But again, either way, all events open to everybody. All are always welcome. You just got to love the game. That's what we're here for. We're here to celebrate baseball. So we're going to do that again on July 16th. Then we're going to get together Elysian Fields branded event on August 5th with Vanessa Ivy Rose. Vanessa is the granddaughter of Norman Turkey Stearns, and she wrote a great book that celebrates his legacy and talks about her love of the game and how she's continuing to carry his legacy forward. So she's going to be with us on August 5th. Then on August 16th, we're getting together in person at Annabella's in East Rutherford to celebrate the 20th anniversary of SABR Elysian Fields. It is a buffet event, so walk-ins aren't really practical. You do need to RSVP ahead of time. It's $65 a person for the buffet. There's a cash bar. Ed Randall, longtime radio personality, who had a morning show on WFAN for 17 years, talking baseball. He's the #1 Sunday morning radio show in New York. He's now over on MLB Sirius, the MLB
XM.
channel on Sirius XM. And he did Yankee post game for a while. He's just got full of baseball stories, and he's going to come hang out with us and give our keynote address for the afternoon. Couple other surprises too. So I hope that anybody who's local, I know there are people on this call that aren't local, and I love having you all on these virtual calls, and if you feel like we've had people take trips for some of our events. So again, everybody's always welcome, but for this one, there is that RSVP. So if you do want to attend, shoot me an email, thelensofdonnam@gmail.com, or contact me on any of our social media channels, Instagram, X, and Blue Sky at SABR Elysian. So that's it for tonight. Thanks everybody for joining. Dan, thank you for spending time with us and helping us celebrate the most awesome game of baseball. Good night, everybody.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks.
Good night.